Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, my friends. It is Wednesday. The Wednesday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour is on the air, the fastest hour in American media. Today, we're expecting to hear from Jim Jordan, Congressman Jim Jordan, down near the half-hour mark of the program. And, of course, so much in the news, still news coming in from Los Angeles, California, and the ramifications of that. Protest underway in many cities across the United States for various reasons. In New York, the pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas protesters are still wreaking havoc. And, of course, in many other cities, Seattle, violent protests with Antifa blocking the way for ICE agents there until they were finally dispensed with after hours and hours. Seattle has been a hotbed since 1998. I left Seattle the week that a lot of this stuff was taking place. There was a World Trade Organization thing, and it broke into total anarchy. And that's the first time many of us saw these mass marauders calling themselves Antifa. Then they didn't have a name. But they disrupted that city. They've been disrupting ever since. Washington State is another state out of control. They're part of the new Confederacy. They're part of the rebel alliance that sides itself with the institution of illegal immigration. But they are an anti-capitalist bunch there. It's a horror story, and that place needs to be cleaned up. Now, my friends, this has been a horrible weekend for music lovers, by the way. Brian Wilson passed away, founder of the Beach Boys, genius. And there were articles being written about Brian Wilson. We will, of course, be playing some of the music from the Beach Boys today. They defined the soundtrack of not only America, but of a kind of gentler, fun America. They defined in many ways part of as you know, the surfer sound. Even though Brian Wilson himself was never a surfer, but they defined the whole surf movement that came to be recognized as synonymous with California. Of course, one of their hits, California Girls, Surfing in the USA, and so forth. And the sound that they created, the Beach Boys, was just pure genius, is genius. Brian Wilson had his ups and downs in life. He's a giant, just an icon. And so his family announced it today. They asked for privacy. But they did acknowledge that there are millions of people grieving with the family, and that is true. What a week. Sly Stone, another icon earlier this week, and now Brian Wilson. The governor of California has decided to launch his presidential campaign this week. Gavin Newsom. And it is Gavin Newsom that I want to talk about by way of talking broadly about liberalism and what it is. But let's listen real quick to a few of Gavin Newsom's remarks from his speech. Carlos, we're looking at 6, 7, and 8. Let's begin with 6. Gavin Newsom.
We all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please do it peacefully. I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
Really? All right, let's just roll through them. Carlos, let's hit the next one from Newsom, and then I will discuss all of them. Go ahead.
Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in L.A., not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point.
Continue. Next one.
Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project. 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. At this moment, we all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please do it peacefully.
Yeah, we heard that. Now, there's so much to unpack here, but let me just say this. Gavin Newsom has ignored the rule of law, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in. That's why they're in the situation they're in Washington State. That's why New York police are on the street having to deal with people who unlawfully assemble for the purpose of disrupting. That's why the left is forming a nationwide network of incendiary, hateful protests to protect the lawlessness that the Democrat Party is responsible for in the Confederate states that are now rebelling against the law of the United States of America. I heard Gavin Newsom referring to Donald Trump numerous times as an authoritarian. He's warning that that this administration is authoritarian, and that got me to thinking. Liberals refuse to hold up the authoritarian mirror to themselves. Ever since the 1960s, at least, and even before, but it was interrupted by World War II, liberals have been on the march to disrupt authority and then assume it for themselves. They did not like the moral authority that was the underpinning of American culture. And yes, it had its flaws. But But they didn't like it. They didn't like the idea that a moral society had certain tenets, which invaded their own belief as to which impeded their ability toward hedonism. And so as a result, we got what many of us participated in. The generations of sex, drugs, rock and roll, anything goes. Anything goes. Have a sex with as many people as you want. There is no more morality. There is no discussion allowed in the public forum about God, about morality, about the way that people should be living their lives. Instead, we get this authoritarianism from the left. Now, during a commencement speech, University of Minnesota Law School, Tim Walz, their failed vice presidential nominee, said that Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo was scooping people off the street. What are they doing? They are enforcing American immigration law that liberals have not enforced for years. This is part of the problem. This institution that the rebel states have, the Rebs, demand illegal immigration so that they can profit off of it. And they have been doing that. Democrats, their political allies, have been throwing around the word fascism now. Hitler references since 2016. Now this new buzzword authoritarianism comes up. But who have been the authorities? Everything that was normal in American culture, these new authoritarians have tried to get rid of. Basic things. Scientific basic things like biology. No. It's not just here in the United States either, by the way. People overseas. UK is in terrible shape with this business. You adopt the left's way of thinking or they will make your life hell. People have been thrown out of work, had to fight all kind of legal cases for using the wrong pronoun. If people say that they don't want to engage in the new think, then they're faced with court battles like Colorado, time after time, kept going after this guy who just didn't want, hey, look, I don't want to get involved. I'm not telling you how to live, but no, I'm not going to bake a cake supporting homosexuality because he didn't feel it was his religious right. They hauled his ass into court, tried to ruin his business. Who are the authoritarians here? It was them with their idea of what authoritarians were. In California, Newsom and these one-party Democrats led the notion that if you're not driving the car that they want you to drive, they will ban you from using your car. Who are the authoritarians here? They demanded electric cars. We're not even going to allow you to drive a gas car. Who's telling people what to do? Businesses have to bow down to their version of how they want appliances to run. Who are the authoritarians? You have to bow down behind their notion of secularism. Do you realize we are probably one of the only nations on earth where you're not allowed to teach what the world religions are, because liberals have so completely banned discussions of God out that most people can go through public schools from grade kindergarten all the way up to finishing college and not understand people's religions around the world, what they believe, because they're centered on God. The authoritarians on the left have decided God is not a topic that they want introduced. Morality is not. And so it is banished. And these people have the nerve to complain about us, Donald Trump, being authoritarian. They use taxpayer money to fund their authoritarian purposes. Look at this whining that's going on about Planned Parenthood being stripped out of some of the spending now. The Green New Sham money. They demand, these new authoritarians, that you have to keep funding failing public schools rather than make sure children are educated because their teachers' unions depend on them and they depend on teachers' unions' donations. And so all of this, these battles, you can look at almost every single thing that we are having conflict with in American society, and it's because the left authoritarians have decided that they know better than everyone else, and they're going to force their will on America, regardless of how insane it happens to be. Whether we have to now argue the insanity that men should not be going into bathrooms where little girls are. Because these authoritarians have now put it into law that it's permissible. What we are seeing finally is a pushback against authoritarianism. The brutal leftist authoritarianism that has wrecked American culture, that is perverse in so many ways. And we are fighting a battle for basic human decency and for laws to be enforced. We got to take a quick break, my friends. I'm just getting started.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
I shot me in the nuts, and now I'm losing a ball. Surgery is tomorrow. But you know who else only had one ball? Tupac and Hit.
One pack. That's why they call him one pack. James Golden is Snerdley with you. We have so much. We have so many audio pieces. We'll try to get as many as we can. And we're expecting to hear from Jim Jordan on the other side of our commercial break. That's upcoming, ladies and gentlemen. And we're expecting to hear from Ohio Representative Jim Jordan. Want to ask him his thoughts on the big bill that is still winding its way through the Senate. What's that?
Beautiful bill.
Yes, Carlos. Oh, Carlos, I'm so happy that you're paying attention to the news and all these things. The big, beautiful bill. So we'll be sure to ask Jim Jordan about the big, beautiful bill and also ask him about some of the remarks from Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and others concerning that big, beautiful bill. So whatever you do, my friends, keep it right here. It's Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. This is the fastest hour in American media. And we want you here for every single second of it.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I shot me in the nuts, and now I'm losing a ball. Surgery is tomorrow. But you know who else only had one ball? Tupac and Hit.
Why were you arrested? Because my bike went onto a policeman. Why are you here today? Is this in protest of Donald Trump's immigration policies?
Because, yes, and because a lot of my people are getting taken away. And, yeah, I mean, like, it's just sad. Like, we were literally born here. We've lived here all our lives. And it's like, how are you going to send us back to a place where we don't even know? You told us to come here for opportunity. We came. And it's like, I don't know. What do we do from here? I'm getting a felony, guys, I guess.
¿Hablas español?
Sí. Pero yeah.
The last one you heard was a young lady sitting on the ground after being handcuffed. She ran her motorbike willingly into police officers, smiling and talking to reporters about how she's going to pick up a felony because, I guess, either family or friends are illegal. She doesn't like the idea that the law is being enforced. And the first, again, unfortunate person is losing a piece of his anatomy. Because while he was out rioting, protesting, whatever they want to call it, he took an unfortunate shot in a very private area, and apparently it ruptured. Celebrating the music of Brian Wilson. I mistakenly said Brian Williams and was immediately... Brian Williams, the fake journal... No, not Brian Wilson, the genius. Beach Boys. So much of American music that became iconic from the genius mind of Brian Wilson, passed away aged 82. Announcement today. With us, our dear friend. We love this man, ladies and gentlemen. He is an American treasure. Oh my goodness, Representative Jim Jordan. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm fine. You're the American treasure, and it's good to be with you.
Oh, my goodness. So much to discuss with you. Very quickly, you've seen what's going on, not just in L.A., Seattle. They're still doing warfare up there with Antifa. I was mentioning to the audience, they've been doing that since the 90s. And it has gone unchecked. Now you have these mass demonstrations planned for Saturday. You see what's going on in L.A., the response from California's leadership. What are you, Representative Jordan, what do you think about all this stuff?
Well, I mean, it's the left. I mean, the left is just crazy. I say all the time, not all Democrats are crazy, but the left that controls their party is. And the left always gets it wrong. I mean, they're now trying to, so many of the elected officials, the Democrat elected officials on the left are saying, oh, this is actually President Trump's fault. It's not the people who are throwing the rocks at police cars. It's not the people who are running their motorcycle into law enforcement. It's not the people throwing things off of overpasses, burning cars, et cetera. It's not that. They're not the problem. Somehow the problem is President Trump and the National Guard and law enforcement, which is just crazy. So the left always gets it backwards, takes the wrong position. And it's sad because now the left is completely in control of one of the two major political parties. They control the Democrat Party, and it's just it's unfortunate. Now, the good news is the country has common sense. As President Trump says, we're the party of common sense. The country has common sense. They figured it out, and that's why on November 5th they put him in the White House.
So we still have Democrats in Congress, and of course we have the big, beautiful bill working its way past the House in the Senate now. And we had Chuck Schumer, what Russia used to, of course, affectionately call Chuck U. Schumer. We've had Chuck U. Schumer out saying this. Cut 13, Carlos. Mr. Schumer had this to say about the bill.
I think there's going to be strong Democratic opposition here in the House. We're going to work hard to kill the legislation here in the House of Representatives. This rescissions bill, which is, doing Elon Musk's bidding in terms of devastating cuts to our ability as a country to protect our national security interests all across the world, and then at the same time assaulting, Bert, Ernie, Big Bird, Elmo, and all of the people connected to Sesame Street. That's extraordinary. I mean,
if you wanted to write a law that surrenders American independence and energy independence to the Chinese Communist Party and to the Chinese government, this is it. Look no further than this bill. China's gaining in solar, wants to dominate. If we cut off all solar production, China will dominate, and our children and grandchildren, and even many of us, will be at China's whim. China will have a grip on our energy policy. It will be outrageous. Outrageous.
Representative Jordan, why do you want to give China an edge and have them defeat us? Representative Jordan, why do you want to hurt Big Bird? What are you doing to Big Bird?
This is today's left defending your tax money being used to put Big Bird and Bert and Ernie on Baghdad TV and trying to lie to you and scare you that somehow focusing on using the resources the good Lord has given us in abundance, like coal, gas, and oil, somehow that is going to help China. That it's just the opposite. So again, the left always gets it wrong. First of all, the big beautiful bill, the triple B, as some said, the triple B. You know it's a good bill, though, because like the Democrats hate it. So that's why you know it's good. And then they hate it because it does common sense things, fundamental things that empower families, not empower government, like letting people keep more of their money. It cuts taxes. It says we're going to have the resources there to make sure the border stays secure. We know they disagree with that because what did we see in the 4 years of Biden was there? 10 million people come across the border. They had no border. It says if you're an able-bodied male, able-bodied adult in our welfare system, guess what? You're going to have to work. If you're getting taxpayer money and you're an able-bodied, you got to work. Medicaid was designed for single moms, children, and people with disabilities, not for able-bodied men, 40 years old, who can go get a job. And then finally, this bill says we're going to give parents school choice. It's got a great part of the tax bill is empowering parents to pick the school where their kids get the best education. The left hates those things because they empower families, empower people, not empower the government. So they're going to scare us. They're going to scare us in saying, oh, the rescissions bill is bad. The big, beautiful bill is bad. Both are good pieces of legislation. Both are common sense. And that's why I'm convinced both of them are going to pass.
Well, I certainly hope they do. But I want to ask you, I have so much to ask you about. I want to ask you about a few things that have been highly disturbing to me watching this process of Doge go through. One of the things that Doge reported was that there was a $4.7 trillion that is untraceable in Treasury payments. I don't understand why there's no big scandal surrounding that. Yeah. I don't understand how that can happen, number one. I don't understand how the federal government for years and years had one bank account with no checks and verifications, and money was just flying out the door. I don't understand how hundreds and hundreds of NGOs were drawing billions of dollars unchecked.
Yeah. Well, I would just say the fundamental problem is that bureaucrats aren't spending their own money. They're spending your money, your listeners' money, your viewers' money. So that is the fundamental problem, and it's why the founders wanted government to be smaller. It's what you and Rush talk about all the time. Smaller government is a better government because it means more freedom for people, and it's also more efficient because you don't have bureaucrats who say, oh, Shazam, I get to throw other people's money around? Well, of course I'll give some money to Baghdad television, Iraqi television, to have Bert and Ernie on TV. Well, of course I'll give money to NPR and these public broad. You don't get a taxpayer check. You got to go out and earn your. But somehow NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So it's the fundamental issue is when it's someone else's money, you don't take care of it like you do when it's your own. That's the big problem. And Elon came in and identified lots of things. So remember, Bo, the best part of President Trump's great joint address to Congress a few months ago, I thought it was a great speech, but the best part, I thought, was when he rattled off all the stupid things, like 20 different things he just rattled off that Doge had discovered then, rattled off all the dumb things government is spending, the federal government is spending your tax dollars on. And a bunch of it was through USAID, which is part of this rescission bill that we're going to vote on tomorrow to claw that money back and not let it be spent.
Good. Now, this rescission bill, what is your prediction on how this is going to go? The last vote was close. Only one vote separated that bill's winning margin. What do you think is going to happen with this rescission bill?
Just to be clear for your listeners, that there's the big beautiful bill, which passed by one vote in the House. I think it's going to pass in the Senate. It's going to take that a few weeks. But I do think in the end you're going to get almost all the Republicans to vote for it, with the exception of Senator Paul. But the rescission bill is a smaller package that looks at some of the things Elon and his team on the Doge identified. That's coming up for a vote tomorrow in the House.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
right.
Tomorrow in the House. It's a much smaller bill, but it is a good bill. It's the one that goes after NPR, excuse me, and some of these crazy things that were happening at USAID. So I think that's a good bill. It's a good start. To be honest, I wish the Office of Management and Budget, the way these rescission bills work is it has to come first from the administration to the Congress, and then you don't need 60 votes in the Senate to pass it. So we've been waiting for these from Office of Management and Budget. They're finally sent this to us, which is good. I wish that we'd have been doing these bills, these rescission bills, all along. I wish they would have started the day after President Trump's speech to the Congress and started with the first thing you listed on that list and just went right down the line, one by one. And it wasn't there were smaller amounts, but I still think that would have been good. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but here we are with the first one of these, and I think it's going to pass tomorrow.
Good. That's what I was looking at. Will it pass? Because you do have you have some recalcitrance. Look, I don't know how you feel about this. I tend to look, Congressman, I look at what's happening right now with illegal immigration, for instance, with California, with all of this. These problems have been festering for decades now. California just didn't yesterday decide that they didn't want to obey federal law. This has been going on for decades. Now the rebel states, we have 12 rebel states, the new Confederacy in America, Democrat states who actually proudly say, we're not going to follow federal law. We are not paying attention to federal law. And this has been festering for decades. Is this the Congress? Is this the time? Not only that's going to do rescissions for these outrageous budget items and pass the needed money to secure the border, but also finally deal with the lawlessness that has been allowed to permeate America for decades.
Yeah, and what you're getting at, I think, is exactly right. It's a good question. Is this sanctuary policy that exists around the country? Tomorrow there's a hearing in the Oversight Committee where we have Governor Hochul of New York, Governor Pritzker of Illinois, and Governor Walz from Minnesota, which are sanctuary jurisdictions. And we're going to be talking about that. But in the end, the only way you deal with that, the only way you can stop that is to say to these jurisdictions, if you're a sanctuary jurisdiction, you're not going to get the same federal funds. If you're not willing to work with federal law enforcement when they're enforcing the law, then we're gonna cut back on some of the federal money that comes to your city, your state, your jurisdiction. That is the only way to get their attention and get them to do common sense things. And unfortunately, there's a vote on the floor right now that I got 3 minutes left to get.
Okay, you got to run.
Good to talk to you.
We
buddy.
love you.
Take care.
Come back.
Thanks. All right,
and you tell us how all this is going.
All right, we will do it. Take care.
All right. Congressman Jordan, ladies and gentlemen, got to head off to a vote. James Golden is Snerdley with you. We got to head off, take care of our own business. We're coming back on the fastest hour in American media. Celebrating the music today of the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson passes away at age 82. Sad week in music.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
My friends, there's a lot of activity on social media these days. Here's just sort of our little window into that world.
You know what I really don't with? How ICE is coming for all the Latinos, but what about the Polish people that aren't supposed to be here? The Russians? It's hella white, undocumented Americans in this bitch. It's hella white people that shouldn't be here. Hella white people that shouldn't be here. Not a single Russian, not a single Polak. I can go there. We can go there. This so weird. Why ICE not arresting the Polish people, the Italians that came on the boat too? Bitch, they just as much as immigrants, bitch.
Could you spell and pronounce your name for me?
Yeah, it's Christina with a CH, and then Maimone, M-A-I-M-O-N-E.
You have your face covered. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, because there's been a lot of really fascist responses to protesting under this administration, and we don't really know who's going to show up or what's going to happen. So it's just a protective measure.
Yeah.
So she's keeping her face covered to hide her ID, and then
now
spelling
I'm
her
losing
name.
a ball. Surgery is tomorrow. But you know who else only had one ball? Tupac and Hit.
If you support ICE or Donald Trump, your soul is dog, your intellect is dog, and your looks are dog. And if you get into a conversation with someone like me and you're like, oh, I didn't know, you're dog. And so I think the greatest thing you could do right now is get some cinder block slippers and go jump into the lake.
I just think it's hilarious because who the are you to tell somebody else that they can't live here? Who the because you were born here? Obviously you never learned how to check your privilege because you're lucky that you were born in a country like this.
Amen.
And other people just want to come here and live a prosperous life. And they're not all criminals and nasty bad people. Who the are you to tell somebody else, I'm better than you? I deserve a nice life, you don't. Who the are you to say that? You're disgusting. You're an elitist and you deserve to be deported. If you genuinely believe that all these deportations are for the best. Like, you, honestly. You.
Well, some lady said she stand with California. I said, cool. I stand for righteousness. Cool. I stand for America. I stand with the President of the United States of America. But if you stand with California, Karen Bass, and Governor Gavin Newsom, nuisance, then how about the whole state of California go right on ahead and secede from the union, please? Could you please secede from the union? And then you could have your sanctuary state, your sanctuary city. You could wave your little flags all throughout the streets, up and down, left and right. The View could be your news source. Taylor Swift can continue being your idol. You can continue worshiping Beyonce, Ellen and Rosie, and all of the rest of the Hollywood wannabe worship elites. You can even party with Diddy, honey. We won't care. Succeed from the union. Please succeed. Then all federal support will be withdrawn, and you can cite them to the Gomorrah as you may. We won't care. You can open up those California borders and let them flood into your now country, your sovereign state. And all the little residents of California can take care of the illegals, okay? Around these parts, we gonna stand with America. But until you, your governor, your mayor, and all you wannabes succeed from this here union, then we're gonna bring some law back to the order and some common back to the sense. Now, did you clock that T?
Yes, my friends, passions are running high. Again, my friends, we celebrate today the music. Brian Wilson, songwriter, leader of the Beach Boys, passed away, aged 82. This, of course, the blending of two genius groups, the Beach Boys, and the beautiful harmonies of one of America's incredible bands, Chicago. Wishing you were here. May God bless and protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. Love and gratitude, my friends, for your being here with me and allowing me to be with you. God willing, we will all be here tomorrow. Until then, my friends, I bid you adieu. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. You can hear Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour weekdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?